Let's create this sound in Faceplant. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is grab an analog generator, and then we're going to duplicate the analog generator 3 more times. 1, 2, and 3. Then for the first analog generator, we're going to leave the phase offset at 0. For the second one, I'm going to turn it to 15%, so I'm just going to right click and hit 15. The second one is going to be at 14 for the phase offset, and the third one is going to be at -8. Now I'm going to add a mix and turn down the volume by quite a bit, so around like 32%. And then for our envelope, I'm going to come over here to the release, right click, and hit 20, just so that there's a little bit of a release. Now I'm just going to rename this group, and then the next thing I'm going to do is add another new group, and inside of here I'm just going to make it a analog generator and click on the sine wave. This is going to be our sub, so I'm just going to rename it, and I called it sub 100 Hertz. Perfect. Now we can add a envelope output, and for the release I'm going to set it to 20. Now we want to make sure everything's being sent to the right place, so for our effects we're going to come down here to the lanes, make sure the first lane is sending to lane 3, and make sure lane 2 is also sending to lane 3. This is where we're going to be doing our post-processing. Then we're going to come to our analog mid/high group, so our analog generators group, make sure it's being sent to lane 1, and then we're going to come to our subgroup and make sure it's being sent to lane 2, so that way it isn't being processed inside of the first lane, where we're going to be adding effects to our analog generators. And I also want to turn on the glide. I'm going to set it to 50, and then for our polyphony I'm going to set it to 1, so that way there's not multiple voices playing. Now it's time to move on to the effects, so I'm going to add a new group and rename it distortion. Then I'm just going to put a distortion snap in inside of here and literally just turn up the drive by all the way. Now since we added all that volume, I'm going to add a gain snap in, right click and set it to -30. Come over here to macro 7, right click the plus and hit 50. Then I'm going to bring up the macro to 60%, so I'm just going to right click and hit 60. So now it should sound like this. Very distorted. Now I'm going to add another new group and rename it boost/cut. Inside of here, I'm going to put a multipass. Open the multipass up, come over here to the pre-effects, add a gain snap in, right click and hit -10. Come over here to our first split, right click and type in 100 Hertz. Come over here to our second split, right click and type in 5000 Hertz. Perfect. For our 100 Hertz lane, I'm going to add a gain snap in, turn it to percentage, and turn it all the way down. The reason I did this is because our sub is going to be in this area, and I just want it to be a pure sine wave. I'm going to come over here to our 100 Hertz lane, add a dynamics. I'm going to turn down the high ratio all the way down, and then I'm going to turn the low ratio all the way up. Now I'm going to right click the low threshold and set it to -32. Then I'm going to click the high threshold and set it to -28. Turn down the release a little bit. Then I'm going to set the input gain to 3 decibels. I'm going to come over here to our 5000 kilohertz lane and add another dynamics. I'm going to turn the high ratio all the way down and the low ratio all the way up. For the low threshold, I'm going to set it to -47. And then for the high threshold, I'm going to set it to -44. I'm going to turn the attack down a little bit and the release down a little bit as well. And then I'm going to turn the knee all the way down. And then for the end gain, I'm going to set it to 4 decibels. Now I'm going to add another gain snap in to our post effects. So grab a gain snap in, right click, and then type in 10. Sweet, so now if we exit out of that, turn off our subgroup, our sound should sound like this. Sweet, now we can go ahead and turn our sub back on, and then just to double check, make sure this is being sent to lane 2. This is where our sub will be sent. We're not really going to process this with anything, we're just going to leave it as is. Now for the last thing, which is our post effects, which is also inside of lane 3. So I'm going to add a new group and rename this post effects. I'm going to go ahead and grab a slice EQ, just going to clean up the low end around 20 Hertz with a high pass filter with a 18 dB octave cut. Then I'm going to grab a peak filter, and then I'm going to do a dip around 173 Hertz, turn up the Q by a little bit, and turn down the gain to around like -10. Then I'm going to grab another peak filter and do a little bit of a boost around the 300 Hertz range. Now we can exit out of that. I'm going to grab another slice EQ, I'm going to grab another peak filter, and then do a dip around 237 Hertz, turn up the Q a little bit, and then turn it down by -10. I'm going to turn up the Q a bit more. Perfect. I'm going to grab another dynamic snap in, turn the low threshold all the way down. I'm going to make sure the high threshold is at -20 decibels. Right click and set the high ratio to 2. Turn up the knee a little bit. I'm going to turn the out gain to 3 decibels. Then I'm going to set the mix to 50%, so it should sound like this. Now I'm going to grab a shaper, turn up the drive by 5, create this kind of shape, and then right click the mix and set it to 5%, just to kind of give it a little bit more beef. And now for my favorite part, adding the filter. So I'm going to grab a filter snap in, come down here to the modulators, grab a curve, make this kind of shape, bring down the modulator rate, right click and hit 300, right click the trigger input, and then select always trigger from no on. So that way a new note always triggers the curve LFO. Now I'm going to come over here to our filter snap in, right click the cutoff, set it to 100, where our sub is at. Then I'm going to come over here to our curve, hit the plus, and modulate the cutoff. So I set it around 58 for the modulation. Now the last thing I'm going to do is add a limiter, and then I'm just going to boost the end gain. So I boosted it by 6 decibels. Perfect, and that is our bass sound. You can also make this a cool lead as well by just turning your pattern up by 3 octaves or so, coming inside of the phase plan preset, turning off the sub and the filter, adding like a delay and reverb. I also have the glide off as well, and it should sound something like this. And that is the preset.